Philadelphia, 7, E18 a.m., a dreary Monday in December 2025. A black man emerged from the subway station onto the puddle-strewn sidewalk of Market Street. His gray-blue suit was worn, the shoulders frayed, the collar pressed flat, but unable to hide the marks of time. His cheap black shoes squelched with every step soaked from the early morning rain. His name was Marlon Deshaun Carter, 32 years old. He had once been the top math student at his high school in South Philly. He had earned a full scholarship to study engineering, but life had derailed him, a series of blows, his father's death from cancer, his mother's stroke. He had dropped out of college to take odd jobs, scrubbing floors at night and loading trucks during the day, all to support his younger sister and mother. Dreams deferred. Today he had an interview, his first real shot in nearly 5 years. A tech company expanding, seeking entry-level technical support. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to move beyond food stamps and chip away at his mother's hospital bills. Marlon glanced at his watch. 7:19. The interview was at 803 blocks away. He planned to arrive early, sit in the coffee shop across the street, tweak his resume, and breathe before stepping in. But as he prepared to cross the street, a loud crash echoed. A white Lexus veered out of control, mounting the opposite curb. A woman screamed, then crumpled beside scattered folders and papers. No one stopped. People glanced up, then hurried on umbrellas tilted against the drizzle. Marlon froze for half a second. Every instinct screamed, "Don't get involved. You'll be late. You need this job. Who cares?" But he couldn't walk away. He dashed across the road, dodging a honking cab, and knelt beside the woman. She was about 35, with long dark hair matted by rain, a light scrape on her forehead. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice deep and concerned. She nodded, then shook her head. I'm so dizzy. I'll call 911. Don't try to stand." She clutched his arm weakly. He shrugged off his jacket, draping it over her to shield the rain. For the next 10 minutes, as sirens wailed in the distance, no one else paused. Just Marlon, drenched now, holding her head steady with one hand, gathering her papers with the other to keep them from blowing away. When the ambulance arrived, paramedics took over. Marlon stood ready to slip away, but she reached out faintly. "Wait. What's your name?" "Marlon," he replied. "Marlon Carter." She nodded, managing a faint smile, the first he saw from her before her eyes closed. Marlon checked his watch, well past time. He was late. 8:17 a.m. Marlon stood panting in front of the towering facade of Glass-Line Technologies, the rain-slicked glass reflecting the gray sky like a distorted mirror. His shirt clung to his back, damp and cold, his tie askew, and his resume folder bore a water-stained corner from the downpour. He pushed through the revolving door, his cheap shoes leaving faint wet prints on the polished marble floor. The lobby buzzed with early commuter suits hurrying to elevators, coffee cups in hand, but no one spared him a glance. He approached the reception desk on the 18th floor, where a blonde woman in a crisp uniform sat typing. She looked up, her eyes narrowing as they took him in, a black man, disheveled, dripping slightly onto the carpet. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone flat-laced with impatience. "I'm here for an interview. Marlon Carter. I'm late because there was an accident on Market Street. A woman got hit by a car. I helped her call 911. The receptionist leaned back, crossing her arms. From her vantage point behind the high counter, she appraised him like a gatekeeper at an exclusive club. His soaked appearance, the cheap suit, the rumpled papers, it all screamed outsider. Marlon had seen that look before in job interviews at grocery stores, on buses, the quick judgment, the subtle dismissal. "I'm sorry," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "The interviews concluded promptly at 8. We can't accommodate walk-ins or delays. But could you at least call HR? Let them know what happened. It was an emergency. I have proof if needed. She glanced at her screen, then back at him, her expression unchanging. No exceptions. Next time plan better. Marlon felt a knot tighten in his chest. He opened his mouth to argue, but the words caught. What was the point? He turned away, shoulders slumping, and made his way back to the lobby. The elevator ride down felt eternal. The mirrored walls mocking his reflection, a man who had tried only to be turned away again. Outside, he slumped onto a stone bench by the curb, the chill seeping through his wet clothes. The city moved around him. Pedestrians splashing through puddles, cars honking in the traffic, the world indifferent to his small defeat. He pulled out his phone, staring at the screen. A message from his mother glowed. "Don't worry, baby, I'm fine. Praying your interview goes well." His thumb hovered over the reply button. What could he say? That he had blown it, that helping a stranger had cost him the one chance to pull them out of debt. Marlon pocketed the phone, not wanting to burden her with more disappointment. She had enough hospital bills stacking up her frail health after the stroke. And his sister still in community college relying on him. He leaned back, closing his eyes against the misty air. Was kindness even worth it in a world like this, where stopping to help meant losing your shot? Where people like him were always one step behind, judged before they could speak. The phone buzzed in his pocket, jolting him. An unknown number. He hesitated, then answered, his voice hoarse from the cold. "Hello." A woman's voice came through, soft but steady. "Marlon Carter. This is Ariel Monroe, the woman you helped this morning. I'm sorry if I caused you any trouble. I just got out of the hospital and asked the paramedics for your number through the emergency app." Marlon sat up straighter, surprised. "Oh, are you okay?" "Bruised but fine. Concussion, they said. Listen, where are you right now?" "In front of Glassline Tech. The place that just kicked me out." A pause on the line. Then her voice firmer. "Well, I hope you don't leave. I'm on my way." "For what?" Her tone warmed slightly. "To make it right. And to ensure you never have to question if doing the right thing is worth it again." Marlon stared at the phone as the call ended, the city noise fading into a hum. He didn't know who she was or what she could do, but for the first time that morning, a spark of something, hope maybe, flickered in the gray. Marlon stood in the lobby, the damp chill of his clothes making him shiver as the minutes ticked by. The rain had eased to a fine mist outside, but the glass walls fogged slightly from the humidity, blurring the view of the bustling street. He half expected to be ghosted, another empty promise in a city full of them. But then a sleek silver sedan pulled up to the curb, its tires hissing on the wet pavement. The door opened, and the woman from earlier stepped out, Ariel Monroe, though he didn't know her name yet. She wore a tailored black coat that spoke of quiet luxury, her dark hair pulled back neatly, a small bandage on her forehead, the only sign of the morning's chaos. She moved with purpose, ignoring the valet who rushed forward. The receptionist behind the desk spotted her first and bolted upright, her earlier aloofness vanishing. "Ms. Monroe." Ariel didn't acknowledge her. Her eyes scanned the lobby and locked on Marlon. She crossed the marble floor in quick strides, her heels clicking sharply. "Marlon Carter," she said, extending a hand. Her grip was firm, though her voice carried a trace of fatigue. "I'm Ariel Monroe. I apologize for the rudeness you've encountered here. It shouldn't have happened." Marlon shook her hand, still processing. It's fine. I just didn't expect. She cut him off, gently turning to the receptionist, her expression turning icy. Gather the entire HR team in the conference room. 15 minutes. We're reconvening an interview, and I'll be joining. The receptionist's face paled. But, Ms. Monroe, the schedule. 15 minutes. Ariel repeated her tone, leaving no room for argument. Whispers rippled through the lobby as nearby employees exchanged glances, the air suddenly charged with curiosity. Ariel gestured for Marlin to follow her to the elevators. Come with me. I believe you have something to prove, and so does this company. The 18th floor conference room was stark and modern, a long glass table flanked by ergonomic chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the drizzly skyline. 6 people waited inside the HR director, a balding man in his 50s, the head of technical operations, a sharp-featured woman with glasses, and 4 mid-level managers all eyeing Marlin with barely concealed skepticism. They assumed this was a formality away for their CEO to repay a debt without real consequence. Ariel took a seat at the head of the table, motioning for Marlin to sit opposite the panel. Proceed as usual, she instructed, pulling out a notepad. She didn't speak again for the next 45 minutes, only observing her pen scratching occasional notes. Marlin straightened his damp tie, his heart pounding, but his voice steady. He spoke of his high school math awards, the partial engineering degree he'd abandoned. He detailed his freelance gigs fixing local networks for small businesses, the night spent poring over online AI tutorials on a second-hand laptop. I've troubleshot systems under pressure, he said, meeting their eyes. Not in a boardroom, but in warehouses where downtime means no paycheck. The questions came technical hypotheticals about debugging code handling server crashes. Marlin answered methodically, drawing on real-world fixes he'd improvised. The panel nodded politely, but their expressions remained guarded. No degrees from prestigious schools, no polished LinkedIn profile. When Marlin stepped out for a break, the HR director turned to Ariel. What do you think he's rough around the edges? No formal credentials. Ariel set down her pen, her gaze level. Do you know why we're hiring for out-of-protocol problem solvers? Because this morning I collapsed on a sidewalk and no one stopped. Except him. He didn't know who I was. He didn't wait for thanks. He acted. She leaned forward. Hiring isn't just about skills on paper. It's about character that builds culture. If you can't see potential in Marlin Carter, then perhaps we're recruiting the wrong kind of people from the start. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. The head of tech shifted uncomfortably, but no one objected. Ariel stood. We'll continue, and this time listen. Marlin settled into his new role as a Level 1 technical support assistant, with a quiet determination that surprised even him. The office on the 15th floor was a far cry from the dimly lit warehouses and night shift cleaning gigs he'd known, rows of sleek monitors, humming servers, and colleagues who nodded politely but kept their distance. No one asked about his background, and he didn't volunteer it. He arrived early each day, his old suit, now dry-cleaned his shoes, polished as best he could manage. After 3 weeks, his supervisor pulled him aside during a coffee break. Carter, you're being bumped to the AI testing team. Ms. Monroe signed off on it herself. Marlin blinked, processing the words. The experimental group tackled complex system glitches, the kind that stumped seasoned engineers. He nodded, masking his nerves, and dove in. Ariel didn't interfere directly. She observed from afar, reviewing reports, glancing at progress logs, her presence a subtle shadow in the company's digital ecosystem. Marlin felt her eyes on him not as a favor owed, but as an investment assessed. One afternoon, as the winter sun slanted low through the windows, they crossed paths in the elevator. The doors slid shut, enclosing them in the quiet hum of descent. Marlon stood in the corner, hands clasped in front of him while Ariel stared at her reflection in the polished steel. "You ever wonder why I collapsed that day?" she asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Marlon turned, caught off guard. "I figured it was the accident. The car." She shook her head, her dark hair catching the overhead light. "Partly. But it was more than that. I'd just come from a meeting with investors, old money types from the East Coast. One of them wasn't happy I'd turned down a deal to sell shares under unfavorable terms." Marlon listened, sensing the weight behind her words. "You know what it's like to be judged by your skin," she continued, her voice steady but laced with something raw. "I know it from another angle. Being the only woman in a room full of gray-haired white men, always having to prove I'm not just a figurehead. I pushed twice as hard gavel my way through every negotiation. That morning, I didn't just hit the ground because of dizziness. I hit it because I felt like I was fighting alone." The elevator dinged, pausing at a floor, but no one entered. Marlon remained silent, absorbing her confession. "And you stopped," Ariel said, turning to face him fully. "Out of hundreds rushing by, you stopped. Not because you knew I was the CEO of this place, not for a reward, just because it was the decent thing to do." Her eyes met his, clear and unflinching. "The door's opening for you here, the promotion. The opportunities, they're not repayment for a debt. They're because you deserve them. You've earned every step." Marlon felt a warmth spread through him, thawing the cynicism he'd carried for years. The elevator reached the lobby doors, parting with a soft chime. As they stepped out, he managed a quiet reply. "Thank you for seeing that." Ariel nodded, a small smile breaking through. "We're not so different, Marlon, both fighting invisible battles. But maybe we don't have to fight them alone anymore." She walked toward the exit, her coat swirling slightly in the draft. Marlon watched her go, realizing for the first time that his act of kindness had rippled back, not as obligation, but as a bridge between two lives that might otherwise have never crossed. In that moment, the city's vast anonymity felt a little less isolating. 6 months later, Marlon had risen to lead the technical support team, a position no one, least of all him, had anticipated. The promotion came quietly, backed by results from the AI trials where his practical fixes had streamlined processes that baffled others. His office was modest, a corner cubicle with a window overlooking the Schuylkill River, but it symbolized everything: stability, respect, a way out. He moved his mother from the crumbling rental in South Philly to a small but comfortable apartment in a safer neighborhood, complete with a balcony where she could sit and watch the world without worry. The hospital bills were paid down. His sister had more breathing room for her studies, and for the first time in years, Marlon slept through the night without the gnaw of uncertainty. In a company-wide internal ceremony held in the main auditorium, Ariel invited him to speak. The room was filled with employees, engineers in hoodies, executives in suits, all gathered under the soft glow of overhead lights. Marlon hesitated at the podium, his hands gripping the edges, but then he began. "I'm not perfect," he said, his voice steady and resonant. "I don't have an Ivy League degree. I scrubbed floors at night-loaded trucks during the day, but I've learned something along the way. Kindness doesn't make you weak. It makes you less alone." He paused, scanning the faces, then met Ariel's eyes, where she sat in the front row. One day, that kindness gets seen, and when it does, the world shifts. Applause rippled through the room as he stepped down, colleagues patting his back, murmuring approvals. Marlon felt a quiet pride swell in his chest, not flashy, but real earned. After the event, as the crowd dispersed, Ariel slipped out to the rooftop terrace. The winter evening had given way to early spring warmth, the city lights twinkling below like scattered stars against the darkening sky. Marlon followed a few minutes later, finding her leaning against the railing, her coat draped over her arm. "You know," he said softly, approaching, "I used to think the world would never be fair to someone like me, judged before I even opened my mouth. And now," she asked, turning to face him, her expression open, "now I believe differently." Ariel smiled faintly, the city breeze stirring her hair. She gazed out at the horizon where the river curved like a silver thread through the urban sprawl. "It's not the world that changes," she replied. "It's us choosing not to break under it." Marlon nodded, stepping closer to the railing beside her. "Thank you for not giving up." They stood there in companionable silence, the hum of traffic far below, blending with the distant siren wails, a symphony of the city they both navigated. No grand declarations passed between them, no promises of romance or forever. Just two people who had once fallen her on a rainy sidewalk, him at the gates of opportunity, now standing side by side. In the months that followed, their paths intertwined, naturally shared. Lunches discussing system upgrades, late-night emails about innovative fixes, occasional walks along the riverfront, where conversations drifted from work to life. Marlon's mother met Ariel over a simple dinner, her frail hands clasping the younger woman's in gratitude. His sister teased him about the boss lady, but Marlon just smiled. As the sun dipped lower, painting the skyline in hues of orange and purple, Marlon realized the true shift. It wasn't the job or the apartment. It was the light. They had ignited for each other a quiet flame against the world's indifference. In that shared glow, isolation faded, replaced by the simple truth that one act of stopping, of seeing, could rewrite everything. They lingered on the terrace a while longer, the night unfolding around them, a testament to resilience unspoken but deeply felt.